On today's Locked On Giants podcast, we've got to talk about the O-line. That's coming your way next here on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credentialed member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI. You can find my written work over on New York Giants on SI.com. And as always, welcome on in to my Blue Crew community members, to my everydayers, to my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And please, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and click that bell so that every time I post a video, you will get notified. And I've been trying to post shorts as well as these longer shows every single day. When there is a practice, I'm here for a show, whether it's the weekend, the weekday, or whatever. So I am here for you. Thank you again for joining me. All right, on today's Locked On Giants podcast, we've got to talk about the offensive line. I know it's only a weekend, but there are some things going on with that unit that we just got to talk about. Got to have a group hug here with this unit because it just seems like every year we get excited about the changes that were made, the prospects of the line, and every year something happens. And hopefully this year, it'll all settle in. But we'll talk about that in just a minute. Then in segment 2, we're going to talk about the new Batman and Robin. Actually, you know what? Batman and Robin move over because there's a new dynamic duo set to take over Gotham. And we're going to talk about that in segment 2. And then finally in segment 3, we'll wrap things up with a few observations and whatnot from training camp, including some transactions and whatnot that were made. So that is our agenda for today. And just before we get into segment 1, for those of you who are maybe looking for commentary on Hard Knocks, I'm not going to do that on this show. I did get a chance to pre-screen the series finale of the Giants Hard Knocks episode 5. Truth be told, folks, not a whole lot to talk about. I mean, from my perspective, a lot of the stuff that is shown, we all kind of knew. It was all kind of reported, so not to give away spoilers if you're watching this before you watch Hard Knocks, but there wasn't really anything to me that was like, wow, I didn't know that. So, so I'm not going to devote a whole lot of time on that particular episode, but I might do something tomorrow on Hard Knocks. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, let's get into the important stuff, the O-line. All right, so just seems like every year we get all excited about the O-line, how good it looks on paper, and how, we hope and think that it's been solved. And look, I know, some of you are going to say, hey, it's only a weekend. It's only been a week worth of practice. Give it time. But, if we keep saying it's early, pretty soon it's going to get it late, if you know what I mean. And here's the situation with the Giants offensive line. Evan Neal is not going to be a starter on this unit. All right. Even if he gets, he's able to pass his physical, he's currently sitting on PUP with that ankle issue. Even if he passes it, that ship has sailed, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, I mean, if I were a betting woman, I would say that Evan Neal will probably start the regular season on PUP. That's just the vibes I'm picking up based on, observations, what I'm hearing and whatnot. But here's the situation with the offensive line. So we've got Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle. All right, that's not too bad. But John Michael Schmitz has now missed 3 days of practice. And oh, by the way, that shoulder injury that he has, it is to the same shoulder that cost him 3 games last year. Now, head coach Brian Dable said, "Hey, it's a different type of injury." But here's the problem with the whole concept here. John Michael Schmitz is not only missing valuable practice time, but last year, one of the knocks against him was his play strength wasn't really what it needed to be. And the idea was, okay, you go through the off season, you get a little stronger in the upper body, you improve your play strength. All right. Play strength is basically, can he hold his anchor, hold his ground, push guys around, that sort of thing. Folks, if he's got a shoulder issue, and even if it's something different, as Brian Dable says it is, the fact that something keeps popping up in that shoulder, it just makes you wonder, okay, does he need, surgery? Do they need to get in there and see what exactly is going on with that shoulder and get it fixed once and for all? Now, I'm not so sure it's season ending, whatever he's got. I think the hope is that if he, with the day off on Wednesday, maybe he'll be ready to come back and work again on Thursday when they return to the field. But look, if he's going to keep, developing this, getting sore after practices and whatnot, I'm a little concerned about that position. I really am. And here's the other thing that position has kind of, exposed. They don't have a viable option to back up Schmitz right now. All right. They have guys, obviously, Jimmy Morrissey can do it. Austin Schlottman can do it. But they've also tried Jake Kubas at that position, who has never done it before. He never played center in college. So, he's cross-training to learn it. They have tried John Runyon Jr. at that position. Folks, they got to get a backup center. Now, they did sign Greg Van Roten today. He can play center. But I think ideally what they're going to do with this offensive line is they're going to put Van Roten at right guard. I know he played left guard, I think, last year for the Raiders, and he was next to none other than Jermaine Illuminor, who I believe played left tackle. So now they're going to move those guys to the right side, keep Van Roten and Illuminor next to each other, which to me makes a lot of sense. And the reason why, I think that's what they're going to do is because late in practice, we saw Aaron Stinney, who had been playing right guard, flip over to the left side. And, you just get the feeling that it's going to be, Runyon now moving to left guard next to Andrew Thomas. And you're going to have the duo of Van Roten and Illuminor. So the real question mark now is center. Because remember, last year, the biggest problem for the offensive line was the interior. That's where most of the pressures came, right up the gut there. So, the hope again is that John Michael Schmitz is able to go and that, the treatment he's been getting doesn't, there's no more reoccurrences of whatever's been bothering him lately. But folks, if he does not practice on Thursday, I would say at that point, we really got to start to worry. All right. The Giants, they haven't signed anybody for that position yet. I guess they're hoping or waiting to see what happens with John Michael Schmitz. But as I said, the more time that he misses and, the fact that they keep rotating guys in there, and quite honestly, none of the guys they have rotated in there have looked, reassuring. This could become a problem. So, I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news. I know the offensive line is a big sticking point with a lot of people, and it is with me. But these injuries, this is just wild. And, hopefully whatever is bothering John Michael Schmitz in that shoulder, they get it fixed. But I have to wonder if it's just going to be something he's going to have to deal with until they maybe just go in there with his scope and figure out and fix whatever it is that's creating these issues for him. As a result, with the offensive line, just real quick, I'll mention this. The first team offense, yikes. Today being Tuesday as I record this, man, what a mess. Just an absolute mess. And, I got to thinking about this offensive line and the situation. And, listen, Carmen Priscilla, the new coach, he's working to get these guys up to stuff as quickly as he can. But, I got to thinking about, some of what we've seen the last couple of days in practice and how much of the offensive line and the issues, the struggles that they've had, especially in the interior, I wonder how much of that is affecting Daniel Jones. I mean, it's certainly a possibility, but then again, I'm not going to put it all on the O line. I'm going to say, maybe some of it is on them, but, is Daniel Jones maybe not as comfortable behind the offensive line because he's seeing all the leaks and all the breakdowns, and, he's had some aborted snaps, which have been a problem. So just something to wonder about as we go forward. And of course, again, we're only 1 week into training camp now. They reported a week ago on Wednesday, but like Brian Dable said, you can't keep futzing around with this unit. You've got to decide who your five are and let them build cohesiveness. So Van Roten's going to be one of the five. And like I said, that means Evan Neal is not going to be part of this offensive line until he's healthy. And again, I do believe he's going to start the season on PUP. That would not surprise me. But when he does come back, he'll probably end up being maybe the swing tackle. So just right now, the offensive line is it's not good, but hopefully it gets better. Fingers crossed. So, all right. Coming up next, move over Batman and Robin, because we've got a new dynamic duo to talk about. Tell you who right after this. Hey, Giant fans, if you've begun your search for football tickets, but you haven't had any luck, you need to check out Game Time. Game Time has a large inventory of tickets at competitive prices, and they make the buying experience so easy. There are no hidden fees. You're going to know exactly what you're paying for before you check out. You'll get clear images of your seat views, and you'll also get event cancellation protection and last-minute money-saving flash deals. And if you find tickets elsewhere in the same section and row for less, Game Time will give you 110% of the difference. So go on and get the tickets that you want to the sporting events, concerts, shows, whatever events are on in your neighborhood. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Terms apply. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And just coming up on the Locked On Giants podcast, the Giants are off on Wednesday, but I'll see if I can't get a show in for you. I mean, I kind of feel bad if I don't get a show out for you, especially during the week. I mean, I enjoy doing these shows for you guys. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do, because we have not done this in so long. How about we do a Q&A? I mean, I know it's kind of short notice, but send me your questions, and then I'll be recording tomorrow night, and then I'll answer some of them. Usually I do the Q&A for my Blue Crew, but I'll open it up to everybody who wants to send in a question. So if you want to send me a question, you can send it to lockedongiantspodcast@gmail.com, or just post a question in the comments section below if you are watching this on YouTube, and I'll make sure to check it and just round up all the questions before I sit down to record. So how about we do that as part of the show tomorrow? And I also want to mention, coming up on Saturday, I'm going to do I think it's going to be a 1-hour live stream. Now, it's not going to be with Dog and Tana. I will eventually get a live stream out there. I know a lot of you have asked me about Dog and Tana. We will eventually get together, I promise you. But what we're going to do on Saturday, starting at 7:30, I believe, Brandon Olson, who has been with me at training camp, he's been helping me cover it for New York Giants on SI.com, and we've kind of been comparing notes and whatnot. So we're going to do a live stream for about an hour, hour and a half. We're going to take your questions. We're going to share our observations. Brandon did today's report, the Tuesday camp report. Really good stuff. I encourage you to check it out. Stuff that nobody else has. I guarantee you, nobody else on the beat has this stuff. So good stuff from Brandon. And, we'll hopefully get to see you guys on Saturday. All right. This segment, move over Batman and Robin, because the Giants now have a dynamic duo of their own, Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeaux. Now, this pass rushing duo on Tuesday was just, I mean, they were making life miserable for the first string offense. They were getting into the backfield. They were rushing, hurrying Daniel Jones on his throws. I mean, just unbelievable. And just in watching these two operate, Thibodeaux and Burns, what's really cool about this is not only the chemistry that they build up so quickly, but how they're at a point now where they can almost finish each other's sentences, let alone their actions. So, for example, if Thibodeaux is going to play with power, Burns is going to play with speed, or vice versa. So they have just figured out a way to where they have a plan, and it's like, okay, how are we going to torment opposing offensive lines? And listen, Andrew Thomas is one of the best in the business, okay? The left tackle for the Giants. But he has had his hands full with trying to slow down Burns, okay? On the other side, Jermaine Illuminor is a very, very big man, and he has had his hands full with trying to slow down Thibodeaux. So, this pass rushing duo, it's interesting. I saw a picture online when I was doing my written work, and they had Thibodeaux and Burns standing next to each other. Thibodeaux is number 5 and Burns is number 0. And it's like together it's 50. It's like, 50 sacks maybe this year for the Giants, with those two maybe coming up with hopefully half of them. That would be kind of cool. All right, maybe it's a little, ambitious to expect that, but this duo, I mean, thus far as the pass rush, really, really good. Now, what I want to still see from this duo, and we haven't seen a whole lot of it, and what we have seen, I've been like kind of meh on. How are they holding up against the run? Now, Brian Burns, I think is a little bit better at this point in setting the edge against the run. I've seen instances where the Giants have run to Thibodeaux's side, and it hasn't been as clean an operation. So, the hope is that he continues to get better. I like what Thibodeaux had to say today about chasing greatness and wanting to be great, which every player should want. I mean, that should be every player's goal. But this duo, I mean, gosh, let's hope they stay healthy, because if they don't, it's going to be a big, big loss for this Giants team. And, you know, this duo is just something else. The way they get after quarterbacks, the way they penetrate, the moves that they put on. I mean, you see Thibodeaux has a few more moves this year. Burns, of course, has a toolbox, and they're always coaching each other up. And the cool thing also is they compete against each other. So, for example, I think it was Burns told the story the other day of how the first guy to get the sack of the first sack of practice didn't have to, do a penalty lap, or in this case, I think it was push-ups. So he actually got the first sack, and Thibodeaux was the one who had to do the push-ups as part of the deal. So they do little things like that to push each other, and just really, really, been a bright spot so far in training camp, a consistent spot. So yeah, I'm really excited to see them when they are fully unleashed, because they are going to create some really, really big havoc. And good luck to opposing offensive coordinators who have to try to figure out which poison they should take, whether it be devoting double teams to Thibodeaux or to Burns, or maybe even to Dexter Lawrence, who I haven't even mentioned in the equation because, he's part of it, but he's not part of that Batman and Robin. I'm talking about the outside guys. So we'll see when the three of them all get together and really get unleashed. But right now, I really like what I see from those two. All right, coming up next, some final thoughts from Tuesday's practice, the padded practice. So don't go anywhere. Hey, Giant fans, Major League Baseball is in full swing, as are the Olympics. And pretty soon the WNBA will resume, as will the NFL, the NBA, and NHL. There's just so much going on in the sports world these days that deciding what to bet on is probably harder than making the actual bet itself. But with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, placing your bets is so easy. You can choose from a wide variety of props, money lines, odds, futures, and more from any of the sporting events that are currently going on. And all this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus every day. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So go on and head on over to fanduel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And in this segment, I'm going to just give you a few, miscellaneous thoughts from the practices, what we have seen. I started off the show talking about the struggles of the first team offensive line and how they're still trying to figure out, what they're going to do there. We saw a lot of 12 personnel actually in Tuesday's practice. 12 personnel, of course, is one running back, two tight ends on the field. And what the Giants were doing to kind of help that offensive line so that, the offense could actually throw the ball and get some plays off, they were having a tight end stay in to block. Not something that I think they want to do a whole lot of, to be honest with you. I think if the Giants have their druthers, they would rather play more heavily towards 11 personnel, which is one running back, one tight end, and three receivers. Maybe even go with an empty set, so that they have, four receivers on the field because they've got all this speed. But look, it all boils down to, can the offensive line hold its blocks? And again, we're only 1 week in, but they better start showing some improvement in a hurry. I think they will. Again, I haven't lost any faith in Carmen Brasillo. And look, the injuries are not Brasillo's fault. They're really not. Evan Neal, they were counting on Evan Neal being ready. They weren't counting on John Michael Schmitz to get, re-injure his shoulder. So just a lot of, up in the air with that offensive line, but hopefully they get it together quickly. All right, I want to talk about cornerback, because it's interesting. One of the questions that I have seen, and I'm planning to write about it. Hopefully on Wednesday, I'll be able to knock this out. Is I was asked a question right now: which is the bigger priority? To sign extra help, offensive line or cornerback. Folks, they just signed Van Roten, but cornerback, that's a position that I'm still a little iffy on, to be honest with you. Now, they went in believing that Cordell Flott was going to be their incumbent, which he was, but lately, I got to be honest with you, folks, the best combination that I have seen at the cornerback spot has been Deonte Banks at one side, Nick McLeod on the other, and Drew Phillips in the slot. If I'm, based on what I've seen so far, if I'm a betting woman, that would be my three guys that I would have there. Now, that said, I'm still a little iffy about the depth at that position. I still think at some point the Giants will look to add another cornerback. They did the other day. I'm not sure if that guy is the long-term answer, but I think they're going to have to add some more depth to that spot. And that will come after guys are cut and they see who's available. But, certainly, the cornerback situation, I'd like to see that a little bit more solidified. And I do have, confidence that maybe Nick McLeod right now is a little better than Cordell Flott. Cordell Flott a little too inconsistent. Malik Neighbors was just burning him like crazy. Now, in Tuesday's practice, Malik Neighbors did get a whole lot of reps. They've been working him really hard, so it was kind of a rest day for him without it really being an official rest day. But look, think about it, folks. The Giants have Malik Neighbors. The Cowboys have CeeDee Lamb. The Eagles have A.J. Brown. Okay. The Commanders have Terry McLaurin. There are weapons that are maybe on par with what Malik Neighbors can do to a defense. So the Giants better strengthen up, fortify that cornerback spot, because right now I would say next to the offensive line, that's still my biggest question mark on this team is, do they have the depth to hold up, especially if God forbid somebody gets hurt. And with the way this team takes injuries, that's going to happen. It's unfortunate to say, but we got to be realistic. So we'll see how that continues to play out. I don't think they've closed the door on Cordell Flott there, but after the first few practices, it's like, okay, let's see what Nick McLeod can do. And he's looked good. Trey Hawkins is getting an opportunity back there for depth purposes. To me, Cordell Flott, I think he's a slot cornerback. I really do. But you know what? Drew Phillips has looked so good at that spot. Plays a lot more physical, I think, just a little bit more fearless, if you will. So I can't help but thinking that, that three-man cornerback group that I mentioned, by Banks, McLeod, and Phillips, I can't help but wonder if that's the leading group, as we inch closer to the season. So we'll see how they play that out. All right. Not much with the running game today. But again, the offense, first team offense, just a bad day. A lot of sloppiness. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think this was the first time I can remember this camp, Brian Dable popping his cork and just going into a screaming fit. And who could blame him? I mean, you had penalties, you had aborted snaps, you had mistakes galore, guys missing assignments, from what it looked like. And Dable at one point just let out a string of profanities. I mean, you could tell he was frustrated. So just, it's the second day of practice in pads, but still, I don't want to keep leaning on excuses and say, well, it's still early, because look, each day this team needs to get a little bit better. All right. If they're going backwards, if they're having a good day one day and now the next day they have, a bad day followed by another bad day, that's concerning. You want them to make progress a little bit each day towards the season. And I don't know that we can really say that that has been the case. So we'll see how the rest of the week plays out. And then again, for those of you who don't know, the following Monday, the Lions are coming in. That is going to be a big, big and important test for the Giants to really see where they are in terms of their rebuild, if you will. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. Again, thank you for tuning in. Keep it here all week long. I'll have more shows for you. If there's a practice, there's a show. I may do a quick recap tomorrow on Hard Knocks, if not on the episode, because like I said, to me, the last episode was just, really nothing we didn't know that wasn't reported, I think. But maybe we'll just kind of do like a recap of all the episodes, what we like, what we didn't like, that sort of thing. And again, don't forget your questions. If you want to ask me a question for the show, I'll devote a segment specifically to your questions. So that being said, thank you for tuning in, spending time with me, and I'll see you tomorrow, Giant fans.